It is time once again to let it rip. Guys, thank you all for joining us this morning. A couple of things straight out of the gate. We had some questions yesterday while we were on the air about the what's the deal with everything as far as the network goes. What are these different shows? What's all this? And so just wanted to give, for those of you who are unaware of what exactly Let It Rip is, this is the show where we break down discussion. We it's still obviously founded in scripture and all of those kinds of things, but this is real life concepts. This is open discussion, raw dialogue, all of those kinds of things. And generally, um some hot takes, if you will. And so we are cutting it up this morning. T has a topic queued up for us, that I want to see exactly what direction you want to go with this thing. But before we get there, if this sort of thing, this kind of honest, open dialogue, real life, all those kinds of things, is something that somebody who would benefit from this kind of dialogue, and this is something that you appreciate, and all those kinds of things, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to go to whatever platform that you're watching from, and I want you to hit that share button for us. Share this around, share this with somebody, let people know what we've got going on here, because when you do that, it lets more people know what it is that we're doing, and that we're here live every Saturday morning, 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, 7:30 Mountain, 6:30 Pacific. And so this time, I'm interested, man, to see exactly what kind of path forward you're looking to go with this thing, because this can be a kind of a spicy topic. So go ahead and set the table for us.
Well, I shall set the table, brethren. Let's see. So I don't know how much you're into TikTok and things like that. If you're like always following what's going on TikTok trends and things like that. I know for me, being a content creator is one of my musts because I'm kind of entering into this era of my channel where I am reacting to content and with gameplay. And
Mhm.
I'm still having topical conversations on my YouTube channel as well, but I'm doing a lot of reacting because that's what I kind of stumbled upon on accident because I made a shorts channel. Well, my shorts channel is part of my main channel, and I started doing a lot of shorts with just sermons and gameplay. And I'm always getting to controversial conversations in my shorts, man. It's just Joe, you won't believe the controversial statements. Like I'm trying to really wait for this one that I really want to talk about. And I think we're probably gonna hit it a couple weeks. But just I post a lot. Sometimes women preachers preaching good stuff, man. They're sound, and so I'll post it if I
Mhm.
resonate. You just stuff here, man. Women should be preaching and this crazy stuff, right? And so,
Yep.
needless to say, that's how I kind of came up with this topic. And so, started at the beginning of the year. If you don't know, William Murphy had a very, I say, turned up service for his watch hour. If some of you guys don't know what watch hour is, it's what certain churches do to bring in the new year. So instead of having their members go out and do crazy stuff, usually churches will create a safe space for their members to come in to worship and actually pray in the year. We actually did at our church at Sure Foundation. We had a watch night service. We worshipped, man, prophetic words were given. It was a powerful time, and we brought in the new year that way. So you might hear certain churches doing that. Well, Willie Murphy decided that he wanted to add some swag and surf into his New Year's. He wanted to add a little bit of walk it out into his New Year's. And it was very controversial because the problem is I had with it. There was no real scriptural context. It seemed like it was just random people just turning up in the club, and it was just crazy. If you look at the footage, just like, man, I wish I could have let y'all see that. But it was just crazy. It went under a lot of controversy, and had a lot of the Christian community saying, you know, why are we trying to mix secular means in the church to reach people? Why isn't the gospel enough? And that's even my question. I asked that a lot, and you know, in response to react to these videos, because it just seems spontaneous, especially when he was asked about it. He was saying that 150 people got saved, and that was his response: is, yeah, people got saved, so if you can't out soul win me, that's his words, verbatim, meaning if you can't bring more people to Christ than me, then you need to shut your mouth. And I don't know, just kind of got me thinking, like, should we even have these themes in the church at all? Should we stay away from these things? Is it okay to kind of mix a little worldliness to kind of bring people in the church to stay relevant, to stay current? Or should we completely steer away from it? You know, so that's how this thing got started in a very long-winded way. I'm sorry, y'all. Your boy is waking up a little bit, so he's trying to get scared. But that's you kind of peep where I'm going with this. You peep me?
Yeah. So I I'd heard about this. I'm not I oh, how do I say this? I have a short fuse for foolishness sometimes. And so some of the pop culture related stuff doesn't necessarily, like, I don't catch all of it,
Right.
but like this dude had people talking
Oh yeah.
after the service, and somebody sent me a video like, yo, you need to check this out, because I'm the type of guy, and we talked about this a bit during the fandoms episode, and anybody who's heard me preach or anything like that knows that I'm not scared of pop culture.
Right.
And I think that that's the reality of a lot of Christians is, man, they won't tell you that they're scared, but if you listen to them, it's almost like they're afraid they're going to catch a case of the heretic.
Ah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's it, and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the Sunday morning service, I have had some interesting conversations with some folks about this, because the guy that I originally planted the house church with back in the day was very much a man, if we're gonna have holy and set apart, let's have holy and set apart, let's have holy time. You know what I mean? Let's have that kind of vibe and feel and all of that kind of stuff. It should reflect those things, all of that kind of stuff. And I think that there's room in that.
Yeah.
I think that there's room in that conversation. But when it comes to something like this, I think it can become a risky proposition to start to check things off the list that say this doesn't belong because it's not holy enough. This isn't this doesn't reflect what a church service should be. And that's not even the next part of the conversation, that what I'm saying doesn't necessarily touch on yet.
Right.
Is the motivation factor of it,
Right.
which all matters as well. But before you even get to the motivation factor of it, you have to be aware of what you're doing, because it's that kind of mentality that has led people to say no drums, no dancing, no raising your hand. Like, some of the
Oh man.
some of the reactions, dude,
Oh, man. Man.
some of the reactions that I got when I came back east after the service that some folks watched from Sure Foundation were like, what was that? Oh my, oh my, oh my. What? Like, bro. But you could do that about anything.
Right.
Right?
Right. And I think that's what I hate feeling the way I felt. I'm gonna go ahead and just be real with you, bro. Like, I felt like I did when I was trying to crump at my old Baptist church. I was trying to introduce Crump to this church, and they were just like, it is worldly, leave it outside. And I remember fighting tooth and nail with my pastor at the time and bringing scripture to express a different form of worship through dance. And I remember coming out of that conversation victorious because the man of God heard me, but
Mhm.
yes, that's worldly. We ain't gonna be twerking and shaking your booty up in here and gyrating. We ain't gonna be doing that's not worship. And so I remember like, oh man, that felt like, dude, why are we doing that? But I felt old, right? Can I just be real? Like, it made me feel old watching this. 'Cause I'm like, man, how I've just viewed this differently,
Yeah.
and maybe it's because I see the line differently. My biggest problem with this again was his responses. Because
Yeah.
this might be controversial or something. The whole video of them partying up in the church really didn't bother me that much. It's his remarks while he's doing it. Y'all too
Right.
saved. What does that mean? Why are you saying that? If you gonna have a good time,
Right.
have a good time, bro. What do you mean by you too saved? And then I don't know. I can't deny because worshiping at my church, being one of the worship leaders at my church, words do matter to me. So I listen to lyrics a lot.
Yeah.
I can't help myself.
Yeah.
Can I be a little bit honest? So your boy sometimes like a little bit of dirty lyrics. He might be
Yep.
one to leave the Rated E version on when he put on the song. So I'm just being real. And so the Lord, Joe, the Lord is working on me. Okay, so try to keep my gospel just gospel. I'm working on it. Okay, but
So let me ask you a question though. Let me poke. Let me poke a little bit. A little
go
bit.
ahead,
Let me
Paul.
poke.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Why is it that listening to an E-rated version of a song requires the Lord working on you?
Because for me, I don't know, man. I just think I'm like I said, I'm becoming more of a words person. I think the older I get,
Right.
the more I realize that words have power because the powers that it have over me, how it shape me. People say you do matter, and so a part of me
Oh
wants to
yeah.
be like naive and be like, it doesn't matter what goes in your ear when it comes out your mouth, right? Because
Right.
it's semantics. People prefer certain type of language. We talked about this couple. Like, was that like last week or something like that?
It was a couple. It was a
Weeks
couple of weeks
ago. And
ago. It was a
so
couple of weeks ago.
I don't know, man. I This thing is one of those things that I think is so individualistic. By the way, I
Mhm.
want to push this on
Mhm.
anyone else that I just think the Lord works on you on. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't think I think I need to be careful with that. And there's certain things I'm just like, I'm good. I don't think it's really a big problem, you know.
Right.
But for majority with music, it's because since I'm always worshiping, I'm always singing in some capacity. I'm like, I actually gotta be careful what comes out of my mouth and what I put in my ears because I'm a person that I vibe with lyrics. So if I'm in the mood, I'm like that lyric hits, that applies, and so that's just
Yeah.
me. And so it might be like, I don't know if I want that getting the heart bucks. I don't want to, I
Mhm.
might be wanting to listen to, a song that might be a little explicit. You're like, I'm married, but don't want to put that in my bed. I'm just saying, I'm
Right.
just trying to keep it as somewhat PG as possible on the stream. So with that being said, when I'm hearing, looking up Swagger Search lyrics and walking out, I'm like, how is he going to do this? How on earth? Because I'm very quote unquote edgy. So I'm one of those people. I'm like, how are you? How are you? How are you going to do this?
You're
Because if you make this work, I might back you, low key. I might just back you because you. It depends how you go with. But the video never showed that, and I was like,
right.
okay, maybe he's gonna give a response. Surely he gonna give a response and he gonna explain this thing, and he gonna have this look like some hypocritical, old, judgmental Christians who don't like no fun,
Right.
right? I'm like, he gonna make me look dumb, and I'm waiting for it. So his response comes out, and nothing. It's just shut up, don't question me. I'm like, bro, we can't be doing this. We can't be doing this,
Yeah.
bro. I'm trying to believe me. And then one of his members, I don't know if you know who the Brat is. So the Brat is actually one of the members of his church, her and her wife. And a lot
Mhm.
of people were taking fun. And to me, I don't. to me that's not a big issue to me because a lot of people's like you should know he was trouble when he did the baby dedications for Brad and his girl. I mean her girl. I was like that's semantics, you know. I I don't know. I'm not gonna get into that. That's not my gripe. So he gets on this interview,
Right.
same thing, really no explanation, and then he finally gets. He's like, "Oh yeah, the Lord gave me a prophetic word." I was like, "Oh no, oh no,
Yeah, I have the
oh
exact same reaction.
oh no."
Whenever I hear the words prophetic word in the same sentence, I'm like,
I'm just,
all right,
I'm like,
all right,
I'm like,
let's do it.
oh no. Okay, go ahead. He I think he uses was I don't even know what chapter. My head hurts. I think it's like Acts 8 or 9, where the man healed at the beautiful gate. And I'm like, okay, well, where's he going with this? He was like, well, yeah, the Lord told that man to get up and walk it out. I'm serious. I can't make this up. That was the gist of it. He's like, so yeah, man, we just walked in the new year. I said, no, no, no. You. I'm like, bro, no way, no way. I'm like,
Man.
so I'm like, I'm gonna be that guy. You're
Yeah,
reckless. You are being reckless, bro. And
yeah,
and listen, this is a no-no for me. This is a absolute no-no. Okay.
yeah. That's what you call a gymnastics routine.
Absolute.
That's what you call reaching.
Oh my god, man was doing some major flips, bro. I mean, this dude's a pro. And so I'm like, you know what? It had me really rethinking. I'm like, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't think we should
right.
be doing that. And listen, our church is known for taking the song and remixing it. Now, lately, I feel like at Sure Foundation, we've been this actually us writing our own songs. That's what you kind of was talking about a minute ago, is that we kind of write our own lyrics, and you know, they have R&B
Yeah.
beats to them and themes. Like me, I don't know why I'm in this neo soul R&B flow. You know, I feel like my wife's voice really fits it, and so a lot of times, you know, we're doing songs like that. But you know, you see rap at our church, you see Christian rap. You know, some of our really earlier songs on the Ant wrote are flipped from Gap Band, and one is even Super Bass by Nicki Minaj. So listen, I I get, but what I've seen be done in our churches, we gut the words completely, and we might have a
Yeah.
whole different flow of words. Sometimes the melody even changes; it just keeps a little bit of that familiarity with the beat. So I'm trying to be gracious, but I'm just like, this is a no for me, and we gotta stop doing this at church. And it's not the only church that's done this. We have churches that talked about weed being okay and things like that. And let me give me some a little bit more context. Weed in the sense of that you could literally get blowed in the church, just this crazy stuff. This stuff that's just not challenging people to actually be set apart. And that was my biggest thing. I'm like, well, where's the challenge to be set apart in this? You know what I mean? Because it's like, I get it, you know, kind of, because his responses are killing. But I'm gonna be gracious, Joe, because you know I'm one of the gracious one when I get on here. I'm like, I'm trying to figure out where people going, you know. So before I be like, yeah, that's just wax. Shut up, don't do it. Sit down somewhere. Go take a time out with your squeezy in your hand and think about what you just did. I'm usually trying to be gracious, but I'm like, bro, I just felt like we can't be trying to. Where is the identity in the church if we look like the world? That is the like serious question, and that might be the question for this whole stream. That might be the spicy, controversial question because
Mhm.
I swear, since I'm like in my 30s now. I'm getting a little bit older. Is there's always this argument of be not like the world, but be in the world, right? If you're in the world, you're not supposed to be like the world. So if you have anything that looks like the world, you're of the world, right? That's the extreme argument. And then you have the other side. You know, how are we going to reach the world if we don't even know what they like? We don't even know what their customs are. We don't even know what they're into.
Right.
We kind of gotta, you know, give a little bit so that way we can reach these people. And so these two are always colliding. They're always banging. And I feel like late, I don't know, bro. I don't know if it's age. It probably is age. I'm kind of like, I feel you, but at the end of the day, how much I used to say I hate it. I'm starting to appreciate this about being a Christian. We are meant to look different. So what does different look like?
So
I'll let you have
I'm
it.
gonna.
Let's roll, bro. I already feel you.
It's funny. It's funny because Andrew will tell you whenever he has me on the Misfits
Mm.
that he has me on the Misfits because I make him look like a moderate. Um
That's a lot for him.
Bro, if you're edgy, what am I, a cliff jumper? Like, come on, man. Like, what are you? You're edgy. Come on. Before I really go into and start breaking down what you had said and responding, we've got some comments here.
What's up, Cedric?
Cedric's in the comments. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us. And he's got a couple of questions here. Thought, who are we trying to reach and teach when certain songs are redone at your church?
Ooh.
So, I think, so I think
That's low it.
it's hard with these kinds of
That's
questions.
low it.
And I want to honor it, and because like we've said before and we'll say again, you know, thank you for commenting. We really we appreciate the comments, we appreciate the questions, we appreciate the engagement. I don't want to go too far off of what the spirit of the question was. So like when with questions like this, there can be some like implication that isn't conveyed within a chat box. You know what I mean? And that sort of thing with this kind of thing. But I would say I'm going to answer almost twofold. One, for myself, and two, kind of knowing the directionality of Ant, knowing the directionality of Sure Foundation, that sort of thing.
Right.
I used to think way back when that Christians were just being weird when they would take a song, change a couple of lyrics, and then suddenly it's a Christian song.
Twerk for Jesus. He has a different meaning now. See?
Nonsense. You're a nonsense,
we're
bro.
It. Come on. Go ahead, my bad.
But so here's the thing though. And I think this goes into part of where I land on this thing. I think that there's something to a song that wasn't intended for one message being taken a different way. So for me, and I know that there's a not zero chance that I will be standing alone in talking about this, because this isn't really like our target audience's type of music.
Right.
I get that. Right. So there's a band back in the late 90s, early 2000s called Evanescence. Bring Me to Life was their big radio song. Male, female, genre called nu metal, NU metal. And the big thing with, there were some bands from that time period like Evanescence, Flyleaf, stuff like that their music had some undertones to it where, like, if you squint and cock your head, is this a Christian song? And Lacey Sturm from Flyleaf actually ended up becoming like going full blown like left Flyleaf and went on to do Christian music.
Wow.
Evanescence, when they first got together, I think it was their drummer and the lead singer, or the guitarist and the drummer. I don't know. There were two members of the band that were Christians coming into it. If you break it down lyric for lyric, word for word, beat for beat, it's not a Christian song at least not a theologically accurate Christian song. I would argue that 3/4 of the songs that are on popular Christian radio are also not theologically sound or have accurate lyrics to them anyway. But I digress. That's an entirely other conversation.
And I approve this
Anyway.
message. I approve this message.
Now that we pissed off everybody, but so far the thesis statements for today are twerking for Jesus
Yes.
and contemporary Christian radio is not.
We're redeeming twerking.
Okay, so and this is what happens when you're not around, man. So I like I said, I used to think that was silly, that was just Christians going too far, redeeming me, all of this kind of stuff. But there's something to the theme of a song resonating with a particular group of people.
Right.
Johnny Cash, that was really big in the contemporary Christian music scene. Johnny Cash got really big in the late 2000s, early 2010s, with Ain't No Grave Gonna Hold My Body Down, Hurt, Ring of Fire. Like there were several songs that really got popular. But you have to ask the question, did Johnny Cash intend those songs to be used in a worship service?
Uh-oh.
And so so that's I think it's a nuanced question. And so to go to the actual question that's being asked here, that who are we trying to reach and teach? I think that's a moving goalpost. I think that's a situational answer.
Yeah.
Because you take somebody like me, right? Part of my ministry is I minister to folks that are in the track with me. For those of you guys that are listening, hear everything I'm about to say. Don't hear one word and roll with it.
Right.
People that are in alternative lifestyles.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean what you think it means. That's like the heavy metal crowd, the goth crowd, those kinds, the punk rock crowd, different stuff like that. That those alt lifestyles that folks that are very straightforward, straight-laced, that sort of thing would look at that and be like, I don't know about that.
No, thank you.
Sort of.
Right. No, for real. You speaking.
And so coming forward and playing I don't know, Michael W. Smith, Kirk Franklin, Chris Tomlin. I don't know. I'm bad at this because I don't listen to contemporary Christian music. Like those types of artists, that's not going to hit. That's not going to do anything. That's not going to resonate. It might with some, but it's not going to with everybody. And so you have to figure out a different way of articulating these things and stuff like that. Now, that also being said, and this kind of speaks more to Sure Foundation's perspective on this, I might not necessarily agree wholeheartedly with Ant, but there's only X number of rhythms and chords and musical components that exist. And so you can hear a thing.
Right.
And appreciate the backing track. You can appreciate the substance of the song from a musicality standpoint.
Right.
And say these lyrics are garbage. So let's do away with those.
Right.
Let's keep the melody and stuff like that and go forward from there. Or, man, this sounds like this could be a Christian song. Let me change some of this stuff and rework and all of that kind of stuff. I do think that there's a difference between songs that are redone, and this is a personal thing. And this gets to the nuancy stuff, Cedric, that I might not that can't necessarily be fully captured in in a comment section or something like that. I personally would think that there's a difference between some pastor being up on his stage and reaching, like Stretch Armstronging to get to Walk It Out, and taking a song and actually going through the musical components and remixing it.
Right.
I don't think that those are the same thing.
Right. Let's see. He said you guys are all over the place. It's simple. It's been the song. Well, he's building like the thought process, and I kind of want to join you on this thought process. And I am going to be a little bit racial with it, because I just feel like, and you could jump in, Joe, anytime. Like, being African American, I feel like the biggest problems in the African American church is because the biggest problem is we're trying to reach. So you're talking about intent. I feel like a lot of times the intent for me growing up, even having somewhat of a negative intent, if I'd be honest with you, is to reach people who are not going to come inside of a church door. They're not going to listen to I Know It Was the Blood. You know, they're not going to listen to, now in this age, a Tasha Cobb or Kurt Franklin. And so they might come in if you remix a song that they listen to, because usually it pertains to younger people, right? Because that's usually who are still consuming a majority of our media music, especially we're talking about hip hop, R&B. It's still a younger crowd. And so the intent a lot of times is for churches to be relevant to reach a younger crowd. Is this wrong? To the intent part, it changes. That's why I think it's a hard question, because it really depends on what you do with the music. It really depends what you do with the lyrics. It really depends on what the motive is. I'm seeing horrible ways of doing it. I've seen good ways of doing it. I'm a part of a church where we, for a season, remix songs in a powerful way, and we had youth coming down for real, and we walked with our youth. And so I think it's a really nuanced question. So
right. And that's why when I look at stuff like, guys, you're all over the place, now you're moving forward, like, I don't know. Like I said, yes, this I agree with. We must allow God to be God. But again, that's so nuanced. That's so situational in the putting pen to paper aspect of it. God is God. God doesn't change. That part of it is unchanging, unfailing. That's the constant part of it. That it's how we express it changes and has to be nuanced. That's why I think when you look at something like, and I want to go through and kind of try to square this back to where we started, right. Because I can vibe with some of what you're saying. I'm sure it's not a one for one, and I'm sure that there's idiosyncrasies in it that because of all of the reasons, I wouldn't necessarily know what I don't know about how it does differ, but a different a whole portion of my ministry goes towards folks that will never go into that will never step foot into a church.
Yeah.
And so that portion of it, at the very least, is the that portion of it, at least, is kind of on the same page and in the same directionality. One of the big things, though, is not fully and completely betraying what you're doing. Don't betray it at all. But my point is don't like fully leave this thing behind, all in the sense of chasing a younger crowd, chasing this group of people, chasing that demographic, chasing whatever it is. Enter this age group here, because you could make all of these same arguments. It won't look anything the same, but you could make all of these same arguments about trying to reach a senior community or something like that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's, you could do it for any of them, but don't betray the thesis statement of what you're trying to do, all in the name of trying to reach a particular demographic or something like that.
Yeah.
Before we roll too much further forward, Xandra, good morning. Good morning from Loveland. It is a balmy negative 14 degrees
I
outside.
believe it.
Wonderful. Better you than me.
I think it's like low over here where we at. We both of us in Denver looking crazy. Like,
right.
hmm.
So and then Cedric says, but remember, everyone doesn't read and express his word appropriately. Absolutely. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with that.
But that's why I wanted the park. So I'm glad you read this, because I saw when he first posted it. I think this is really where, in a weird way, the rubber meets the road when we're doing these things. Is how can you communicate the word effectively, right? Because music, where music has lyrics. We like lyrics. Sometimes people don't care lyrics; they want beats. People have different preferences of songs, right? But I believe, and Joe, I think you might differ here. Let's see. I'm just gonna poke. I think when you become a Christian, the content of what you listen to with concerns words, you have to have more of an awareness on, right? And doesn't mean, like, because we talked about this with secular music and things like that. Because we get a lot of things our first couple of weeks of doing the stream. Doesn't mean you necessarily throw things away, but you do have to be careful. Be like, hey, that one I might, because it's doing something in here. Me and Holy Spirit are having some tension, and he gonna win because I want to yield my life to him. So there's certain songs you might throw away. I feel like in a mass setting like a church, right? In a service, which William Murphy had, the content of the word, where was it at? In the content, how the word parallels to the world, where was it at? Because I'm a pick on the artist, and Joe, you might date me a little bit on this one. Might feel a little bit. Oh, it's you too, Cedric. My mom grew up listening to. Well, I grew up in the house listening to a lot of 80s, 70s music, and then of course my era, 90s to 2000, right? But for sure, 70s, 80s. So I'm talking about Patti LaBelle, Gap Band. Shoot, go ahead, Joe. Some Stephanie Mills, some Angela Winbush up in there. And so Stephanie Mills has a famous song called "The Power of Love." It's one of her most successful ballads that people know her for. Her and Angela Winbush wrote it themselves. So one of her most successful songs. She then flipped it a couple years later and turned it into a gospel song when she made her debut gospel album, Personal Inspiration, and it was called Now the Power of God. Same lyrics, but switch from love to God. Very simple song. That's serious. That's what she literally does. The whole song. She switches God for love. It's called The Power of God. Her original song is called The Power of Love. In this song, man, I think it's one of my favorite Stephanie Mills songs, truthfully. She's just talking about what she needs from God, and she's talking about her relationship with God. And she talks about how, truthfully, the power of God is the thing that saves our life. Very simple. But I'm like, theoretically, I'm like, you could pull from that, right? And so I think we don't want to be so tight. I was going to say something appropriate. We don't want to be so rigid, that, oh my God, we can't do that. That's just wrong. That's secular. You're going to hell. That's crazy. Because the theme in the midst of the song is referring to God, right? But we don't want to be so reckless where we're not taking anything out, right? We're just leaving stuff there. And that's what happened when I fought with Willie Murphy, is these lyrics are not even being edited out, right? There are full-on choice words, I'll put it that way, and sexual themes that are not even being edited out. So the DJ's not even adding these themes out. And this is before people, and you're trying to connect it to the word, which what I did in my video, I said you're going to have a hard time doing it. If not, you're not going to do, because they're two different themes. And there's not a theme that's going to support this theme. You know, now Walk It Out, I was very gracious with Walk It Out. Walk It Out was like, you know what? The word itself, Walk It Out, you can run with that. Cheesy, I think that's cringe. That's why I'm like this. So while watching I'm like, this is so cringy. You know, it felt just cringy to me. So that was my biggest gripe too. I was like, that's just cringy. That's weak. You know what I mean?
That there's a difference between misappropriating the word and just being cringy.
That was just cringy.
Yeah. How do I say this? So I largely agree with you. Here's my thing though. I think hyper focusing in on one very specific aspect of this conversation leaves a lot of people behind.
Okay.
Don't get me wrong. I think that there's ultimately, like, it may seem like for those watching, like I'm trying to make more allowances. No, I'm trying to have more of the conversation than fixating and focusing on one very specific aspect of it. Because ultimately, biblical accuracy matters. The representing God appropriately matters. All of those kinds of things, all of that stuff matters. All of the things that you would point to and you're like, yeah, that's a layup for church. Absolutely. But I think there's a reality to, again, having different shades of this conversation for different groups of people. It may seem like we are going all over the place by stating that, but because it looks different for different people, the conversation's going to have to include all of those different groups of people. Now, there was something that I wanted to touch on that you had mentioned, that his response in all of this, because I think there's two parts of this conversation to be had. One of them is, can secular music be redeemed? Can secular themes be redeemed? And all of that. And this idea of secular themes goes so far beyond just music. That's the thing, right? Like this is where I get into, if churches aren't willing to recognize this and aren't willing to have conversations. There was a comment that Cedric made, children are the future. Well, yeah, absolutely. If we should be raising up the children and all of that kind of stuff. But if we can't have conversations about the things that are relevant to them, and we can't have a conversation about the things of the world to kids that aren't necessarily given to caring about expositing the text over and over and over again, or those kinds of things, like, yeah, good, fill their head with good teaching and all of that kind of stuff, raise them up well. I'm not saying either or, I'm saying yes. And if we can't reach them where they're at, then you're not going to reach them.
Right.
That's the reality of it. And I only use that as an example. You could say that to full-grown middle-aged men who lived an entire part of their life under an entirely certain context and all of that kind of stuff. And what, like, that's like saying you can't have a biker club of Christian, like a Christian biker club, or you can't have a Christian metal band, or you can't have, you know what I mean? Like, this is where I get back to, it's real easy to start to poke and prod and say, you can't have this because it doesn't look this way, because it looks too worldly. Now, if in the attempt of trying to convey a certain message to a particular group of people, you are so dismissive to anybody who's like, whoa, wait a minute. Have you gone too far? Is this a problem? Like dude was when people called into question, like, oh, forget about you. Like, you just don't understand, whatever. Then you have to question, okay, what is your heart posture in all of this?
Right.
And that's the other part of the conversation, right? Like the secular themes portion of it, that's its own conversation that is deep and nuanced and all of that kind of stuff, because I'm going to say something that I think may be spicy to some folks.
Go on, Dan. Get your milk, folks. Get your milk.
I think systematically and widespread in the West, we misunderstand what it means to be holy and set apart.
Oh yeah.
I
All right, track where you're
don't
going.
think that holy and set apart means that we need to stick our heads in the sand and ignore the world around us. I don't think holy and set apart means we cannot engage with secular themes or that secular themes can't be redeemed. Because there are songs that I listen to, and I'm not just saying that this is the only reason why I think this way, but there are songs that I listen to that, yes, I agree with you. There are some songs I have left behind.
Oh yeah.
There are some ones that they just like. Generally, I find at this stage of my life, it's music that I would listen to when I was in when I was a professional fighter, and when I would like music that I would train to, all of those kinds of things, because it puts me in a different headspace. It puts me in a particular heart posture. And not that I think that this song is bad for everybody. Me personally, I associate those songs with a particular season of my life, with a particular mentality, and all of that kind of stuff. And so those are the ones that just aren't good for my soul.
Right.
They could be perfectly fine for somebody else. Likewise, there are songs that I listen to that musically, lyrically, oh, they don't have a licking thing to do with Jesus.
Oh yeah.
They just don't. But understanding where I've come from and understanding what has been and understanding the life that I have led that has led me to Jesus puts me in a heart posture of worship.
Oh yeah.
Full and complete. Not that I'm now trying to attribute any of the themes of the song to Jesus, but it's a look through the lens of real life, real experience, those kinds of things.
I resonate with that. Let me go ahead and say that. I totally resonate with that, because that's music. I tell my wife a lot of times, didn't grow up having a diary, but man, my songs that I listen to are my diary. You know, every song that I resonate with was a chapter in my life where I was feeling what the artist was communicating. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. A lot of music I listen to has meaning for me, and that's not always gospel. You know, so let me go ahead and put that out there.
Yes.
Which might cause me to get stoned. It's not always gospel, but it had a meaning for me. It had a pivotal point in my life where I was thinking like this, and it caused me to either overcome how I was thinking, or I was thinking like this and actually pushed me, like you said, man, that was so good. It pushed me more towards God. I'm a person to this day, you might walk in my house and I'll flow in between an R&B song into a gospel song. And someone like, something's wrong with that. What was it? That's wrong. And for me, it's the thinking. It's that, you know, this is how I'm feeling and this is where I need to be. And so, absolutely. I think to go to your holy and set apart thing, right? That part, because I'm just like, man, I think you're on it, because that's really what the battle is about. I think going to Willie Murphy and his response, the motive showed, and I think you know, this is towards anyone who's in this stance, is the motive was just about the numbers. It's about, I'm trying to pull as many people as I can in to make this church look successful, to be successful. And we, you know, and I hate to be that guy, but come on, we live in a social media age where you're trending. A lot of things are, and so when you trend, that's powerful, because that's new traffic. Everybody wants to trend on social media. So to say that there's no awareness to number conversion, I don't know. You got to really, I feel like you're stretching it, and I don't think that's being honest. I think the minute he did this, he understood that there's going to be backlash, and I think he understood that his stance, because his stance says, well, it was because of numbers. I think a lot of churches think like that. Not all churches, because our churches doesn't think like that. So when we're, not to go back to intent, when we're thinking about the intent, we're thinking about how can we reach people where they are, right? Because I
Mhm.
respect that. You're not gonna get disagreement on it. Some people might disagree with that. They think that you should be so high up that people gotta come up. But me, I'm like, I'm cool with reaching someone where they are. But there's a difference between reaching someone where they are and trying to convert just numbers, because that's what we define success in the church. And that's very
Right.
sneaky. And then you get into the whole being relevant thing, right? Because it's like, well, relevancy looks like this. Because our church shouldn't be outdated. We should be relevant with the times. Which, again, I know it's probably going down the rabbit hole. I agree with to a degree. I think the church should not be absent for relevancy in our world. We gotta understand what is going on in our world, and we gotta be able to give a biblical response to what's going on. So that means we can't put our head down in the sand and be like, oh, I can't touch that. That's too, oh, that's not holy. You know, you gotta understand these certain themes that are happening on in our world, and you got to be able to communicate back to them. But that doesn't mean that you water down God's word either to fit these themes. You address them with God's word. Or here's some scandalous. You say, you know what? God's word doesn't support this. And we're not going to go in this direction. It doesn't mean we hate the world, doesn't mean that we're against it. It's just that there's not a stance where the Bible supports this. Doesn't mean it hates people.
Right.
And I think that's kind of hard for people to do, is either the two. Like I said, I feel like we always live in the world of extremes. The extremes is we gotta be so relevant that we keep people engaged. So we have to be on top of trends. We have to be on top of this. We have to be relevant because this is how we're going to reach this group of people, because no one's reaching this group of people. Or it's the other extreme where it's like, well, we're not going to touch that at all, and we're totally against it. And anyone who even thinks like this is a heretic. And I think there's
Right.
no middle ground that me and you, I believe, we're kind of having in the stream. Is like, well, the middle ground is, you know, if it brings you to Christ, let's go ahead and look at it. If this could be a tool, let's look at it. Let's try to figure out if God can redeem this. If God can't redeem it, then we leave it alone. I think a lot of times it's just, we're gonna push it, or just leave it the heck alone. We ain't touching it at all. Sorry, but we got a lot. We got a couple comments. I think these are pretty good. I saw Andrew's earlier. What's up, Andrew?
Yeah. But before the thing about when you are looking at something like this, I think our middle ground positions they fall in different spots. However, we're essentially saying a lot of the same stuff.
Right.
There's an aspect, though, of what you're saying that you need to take into consideration when looking at the differences of how this is worked out and how this is conceived of. And this is something that Andrew and I talk a lot about when we're on the air together. And for those of you that don't know Andrew, he's another member of our network. He is one of the co-hosts of Ministry Misfits. You can find his show on YouTube and anywhere that you find podcasts. There is a difference between the Roman model of evangelism and the Celtic model of evangelism. The Roman model says that we have to have this greatly derived, this eloquently stated, this well-conceived gospel presentation. That the idea is that we have this big display, and that the idea is we're bringing people to make converts, that all of that kind of stuff. I'm certain that there is an aspect of this where somebody like this guy looks at and is like, okay, this is going to do numbers. This is going to drive attention, all of that kind of stuff from the digital aspect of it. But also baked into the fabric of Western church.
Right.
Is this idea of the Roman model of evangelism, versus this more community based, meeting people where they're at based
Right.
model of evangelism that gets dirty, that goes to where people are, and all of those kinds of things. If our pure intent is to address these issues of the world, or address conversations simply with the idea of negate, if what they're saying needs to be negated in favor of Jesus, then are the question becomes, are we actually stopping to listen? Are we really meeting the person where they're at? Or are we just listening long enough to find where we can interject and then start to evangelize to them and start to preach to them? Now, there are some of our brothers and sisters that may look at me and like, wait a minute, isn't that exactly, aren't we supposed to be spreading the gospel of the good news of Jesus Christ? Absolutely. Absolutely, we are supposed to be spreading the gospel of the good news of the kingdom of God. But does that have to look cookie cutter, clean, like this very specific way, this very specific model, and negate what the person's going through or where the person's at, or adapting something that is relevant to that person? And that's what I appreciate about this kind of approach, and why I think this kind of approach is so beneficial
Mhm.
when it comes to the church. Because, guys, somebody who looks and smells and acts like somebody that I would be ministering to is not going to walk into a church with a dude in a three-piece suit standing at the front of the church talking about behavior modification and talking about, you just need to follow Jesus, forget about everything else, just follow Jesus. Yes, there's value in some of those statements. I'm not saying there's not.
Right.
But if you can't have enough of the conversation to get the ball rolling, you're never getting to the Jesus portion of it. You are never going to get to that point, because you are not building the relational real estate with people. You are not engaging people where they are at.
And
And that's what I think is so important
right.
with this, that we cannot lose the rabbit on.
Right. Okay. So I agree with that. I think we need to reach people where they are. But I think at the same time, there needs. Okay, let's just go through the process of salvation, right? Let's just take this frame this night. Sorry, William Murphy. We're going to use you as a guinea pig because you did it to yourself. Let's take something like a night like this, right?
Yeah.
Let's look at the true beauty. Let's look at the horrible glaring cons. The beauty is it's New Year's. People, especially in the African American community, do I have to begin to tell you what can go wrong on on New Year's Eve night? You know, people could be hurting people, and they're in the church. That is actually a positive, and I don't want to overlook that, because people's like, well, yeah, they're in the church doing the same thing, but they're in a safe environment for the most part. They're in a place where no matter how lousy the service might be, no matter if the service is unsound, they're going to hear about Jesus. There's going to be people in there upholding, for lack of a better word, behavioral standards that create safe environments, right? For the most part. So that's the positive nature, right? So they're in this church, okay, and you got a pastor playing songs that someone's familiar with. That's where they are. They're not saved yet. They're not Christian, and this pastor is using this to point them to Christ. Here we go. Yes, I think, can that be used to meet someone where they are? Yes, I think that's the beauty of being relational with people in that demographic. So I'm not going to question the fluidity of relationship building in the sense, to a point of him knowing his environment, his community. So obviously for this to work, he had to know his community. He's a pastor in Atlanta, right? I think that is a powerful thing. I think this is where we start falling apart, right? It's because truthfully, we don't see people actually walking with people. And when I think about walking with people, bro, maybe hope I'm not the unpopular opinion here. That comes with disagreements and agreements. I
Yeah.
can't be so scared to talk to you because it's your first time in church that I can't be like, yeah, I disagree. But at the same time, I can't be so above you where you can't even touch. It kind of goes back to the conversation we had about being common, which I know in hindsight maybe we should talked about really being relevant. I think we might rename that maybe, but that's a whole different conversation. But I think that's not taken away from being relevant.
Yeah.
My biggest question is when we do these things, right? When we have moments like this in the church, how are people actually being followed up with? How are we walking with people? Because I think that's where the bigger issue is at, right?
Yeah.
Is if we're going to be community based, which I am totally about, my heart is all about community. I'm a person that has friends that I'm just going to be real that are same sex. I have same sex marriage. I have friends that listen to everything. I have friends that are agnostic, and the goal is to have a conversation with them. My goal is not to modify their behavior; it's to change the conversation. I think the examples I've seen, unfortunately, Joe, is that people say, well, since we're not going to modify behavior, we're just going to just throw everything away and just be reckless with our message. So there is no message. It's just people just, I don't know, and forgive me for the jargon. It's just people just, it's just people being, for lack of better words, very unintentional about what they want. So for the person who's a Christian, unintentional in the fact that, I am trying to share the gospel with my friend, with my lifestyle and with my words. On the person's part who is not a Christian, it can seem like it's not clear about what a stance is, right? And I think that's what I've seen it because I'm really having a hard time forming this in words. But it seems like a lot of times the conversations I've seen is that there's no stance that this is who I am. So as much as I accept you for doing what you're doing, you accept me for being who I am, right?
Yeah.
And that's where this conversation and dialogue happens. So when someone's going through something, right? Because people are going to go through life and they're going to be like, well, I know my friend, that guy, Joe, he's a Christian. Now, I know me and him have different views on lifestyle, but I can talk to him because I need some help. And maybe his God can help me.
Yeah.
Totally get that, right? Because I think that's what William Murphy's argument was trying to do, is that, we're relational and these people are coming to us. Yeah. But I think there's an accountability that was lacking. It's like, okay, well, how are we walking with these people? If we can't even say, well, hey, bro, that look crazy. What's the context behind it? And you're telling me to shut my mouth, right?
Right.
Are you saying stupid stuff? I think that's a problem because I think there's joint accountability. That's what makes a community is saying, okay, can we talk about the method behind it?
Yeah.
Because maybe the method was a little bit faulty, but maybe the results, and this is me being gracious, maybe the results could possibly be a work of God. Because I can't say that those people walking out of that church that day may not be on the right track of having a right relationship with God. But at the same token, I can't say that they are either. I can't say they just came in and they just turned up and they said the words to Jesus, but they have no intention of living out the word. That's why I think those things we kind of, unfortunately, are always going to just have to see how things fall. And that's one thing I don't like about topics like this, even though I picked the topic, is that it's so heart nuanced. It's so individual. You don't know what God is doing in the person. I came from the era where I told you I remixed songs and we sung gospel, and those songs really reached me. Joe, you caught some of them while we were there. I don't know. I think you were cool about it, because Joe came, he's family, but some of those songs, man, they pulled me out of a dark place.
Yeah. I think the problem with conversations like this is you have to take time to let the conversation breathe. You
Right.
can't hyper focus on any one specific thing. You can't ignore 3/4 of the conversation to get to one point. You have to have every single solitary part of the conversation because it all fits and all props up the greater whole of the topic in general. Um, and to Andrew's point,
Yeah, I love this
um,
one. Very good
the
stuff.
discipleship factor is a much bigger issue. Paul used idols in Athens, but there was discipleship that followed. Exactly. To my point before about taking and recontextualizing different songs and different things like that, it's not a matter of, oh, because I did a thing that sounds familiar to a group of people, now suddenly that's the thing that's going to bring people to God and all of that kind of stuff. No, it's showing the dynamic nature of what it means to love people where they're at and all of that kind of stuff. But also at the same token, like what if somebody's asking a question about a song that they hear or about a concept or what, like taking keeping it to this idea of um like these specific instances, then that follow up, that discipleship, that post conversation matters because then you can start to unpack all of that kind of stuff, all of those nuancy things and all of that. And I want to get caught up real quick before we keep
No,
going
no, man,
forward.
you're good because we had a lot of comments in between. So you're absolutely fine.
Love the term layup for church. Yes, and this is definitely needed, old and young. And then I had it put up before. If it's not strategically relevant, it won't be effective or efficient or effective. Set apart does not mean separate. Um, Epiphany, let's continue to address things, however, not negate how important connections are. Your diary is for everyone to read. I think it's where we really understand the great exchange.
Hmm.
Speaking on issues is a great thing. And then Andrew's last one that I had up before. Um, so, yeah, I mean, I think when if we're just working off of the model that was set forward by this New Year's celebration, then yeah, I would have to ask questions
Let's do it.
about the motivations and about all of that kind of stuff. Like if you are, what's the through line? I guess.
Hmm.
What's the connective tissue look like? I'm all for show people that we can do something other than just sitting there listening to hymnal music and all of that kind of stuff. But how what are you doing other than just playing club music?
Right.
What's that connective tissue look like? And if it is connective tissue, how far do you need to work outside of the realm of gospel integrity or
Right.
scriptural integrity in
Right.
order to get there? Because I'm all for finding the connective tissue. I'm not saying that it has to be, but is it strategically relevant, not just relevant for the sake of relevant, but actually strategically relevant? Is there strategy behind what you're doing
Right. Good.
that fits to the ultimate goal? Because likewise, like I'm gonna take this out of this context and put it into an entirely different context, but
Right.
it's the same concept and all of that kind of stuff. Part of where part of why, and maybe this is something that eventually will God will work out of me and all of that. But if I'm going to be completely and totally honest, what I think separates me from some of my contemporaries, i.e. guys like you and Andrew, is that I am closer to unapologetic
Hmm.
about some things. not because I'm trying to frustrate anybody, or I'm not trying to attack or any of those kinds of things. I'm not. There was a point in my life where I was trying to be controversial for the sake of being controversial. That portion of it is something that has I've moved away from, because I understand that while Jesus was a controversial person and a controversial figure, it wasn't anti-authority for the sake of being anti-authority. There was
Mm.
a specific perspective in all of that. Um, that being said, I don't. I, for one, don't think it's a bad thing that I know people or have friends that are LGBTQ plus,
Right.
atheist, agnostic, any of those kinds of things. Nor is it my job to find every single solitary possibility, and I don't even want to use the extreme version of that, because it's like, because people could look at that and say, yeah, no, not every single situation has to be a conversation about Jesus, but you should at some point have a conversation about Jesus. If a person doesn't trust me, if a person doesn't think that I care past getting them converted, how effective do you think that conversation about Jesus is going to be? I could hamfest it.
Right.
Don't get me wrong. I get in front of the microphone. I don't know, somewhere in the ballpark of 25 to 30 hours a week, sitting here giving various forms of Bible teaching and gospel presentations and different things like that. I do this a lot. I can do gymnastics with the best of them. That's why when I heard what dude had to say, I'm like, oh yeah, no, bro, you're reaching, because I know how to reach. I can do it.
Right.
I just don't think it's effective in any way, shape, or form. But that being said, I guess part of where my damage is on this whole thing, and where I start to poke and prod and start to question and all of that kind of stuff is it, if your job is to display the authentic Jesus to these people that have lifestyles that are counter to the biblical lifestyle,
Mhm.
what do you mean by that? And I don't mean you specifically, I mean you inclusive.
Right.
That when and this could go to the music thing, this could go to the secular themes thing, this could go to all of that. What does that look like? Because again, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. You can have the rituals and routines, you can have the words, you can have all of it. You can have it from A to Z, from beginning to end. And with the exception of relationship, you don't need God for any of that. Not a single thing. I know how to be animated. I could sit up here and preach. I could get everybody reciting a banana bread recipe,
Right.
because I just know how to work a room. I could get people fully invested into some absolute gobbledygook nonsense, because I know when to raise my voice. I know when to get animated. I know when to do the bit. I know how to do all of it. But what are we doing? Like, what is the point? What is the directionality? And what is the power of the Holy Spirit in all of this? Are we so scared about looking too much like the world that we're afraid, and we limit the power of the Holy Spirit in all of this? And this is coming from somebody that, when you look at the two of us, when you listen to the two of us, if you've only ever heard T on one of these streams, go over to the YouTubes and look up Sure Foundation Community Fellowship Church. You'll be able to find their YouTube channel and listen to this man lead worship. The dude's charismatic as anybody that you're going to meet.
Mhm.
Just being honest. Like, you are a very charismatic, and I don't mean that statement is not pregnant with anything. There is no implication. Right. I mean that you are lively. I mean that you are vibrant. I mean that you are animated when you worship. That's not a bad thing.
Right.
So it's not a matter of don't do those things that have gospel implications, but if you interact with folks that are LGBTQ plus,
Mhm.
how trusted are you? Like I have had people say to me, I think I could, after hanging around Joe and Steph, my wife,
Mm.
man, I think I could give that church thing another try.
Right. And real quick, because I think me and we're not so different.
Oh, I don't think we're that
Well,
different. I just think we put
right.
that pin in different spots.
Right. I think really what you describe is me to a T. You know, I remember working at a place here in Never called Lariton, and my boss, you know, was flat out homosexual. Was in same sex marriage. Sweetest man I ever met, man. Really understanding. And most of our interactions was just us being not only coworkers, but just human beings and being bros. And really, you could tell the tension when he found out I was a Christian when I first started joining there too. Months later, to him like, man, I didn't know Christians could operate like this. I didn't know they could be so
Right.
loving and kind and have a stance at the same
Yeah.
time and disagree
Yeah.
with respect.
Yep.
You know, absolutely agree. And so, you know, when I look at a situation like this, the attempt to be in a quote unquote worldly scenario shouldn't be a fear. It shouldn't be that your sanctity is so fragile with the Lord that you can't be in spaces. That's not the problem. The problem I'm having with this is the same. Okay, because I'm just gonna be brutally honest. If you air something on the internet, anytime you go live, then I think you should air the whole thing. And that's something that as a society we're just horrible at. And I don't think that's gonna get better anytime soon. People are always gonna be narrative driven.
Mhm.
But if I'm William Murphy, right? Why not air the part where you are giving the word?
Yeah.
Why is that not out there? Why is that? Why is that? And I don't know. And this might be judgmental, and I don't know. This might be a hill I'm just willing to kind of sit on for a second. I don't know if I won't die on this hill, but I'm probably gonna be up here. Um, that shows me that the motive was very not strategic. It was very poor. And you meant it was he meant it was a spontaneous moment.
Yeah.
Because I feel like anything you can't prove biblically, and that's what I mean by biblically in a sense, anything you can't connect to you really biblically talking about God, having dialogue, getting to intimate conversations like discipleship, I think you shouldn't state it. And if you state it, you should back it up. He can't back up what he said. And I think that's the most scandalous part about situations like this. Is if you're going to do things, I'll never like I keep using the example. Me wanting to do crump in the church, in the old Baptist church. You know, I think God to this day, and if Pastor Holland happens to see this, I think God to this day that Pastor Holland did not go with the popular critics who was just like he's
Yeah.
just young and trying to bring stuff into our church that doesn't belong there,
Right.
and we're not going to have that. I'm thankful that he didn't just run with that as a leader and be like, yeah, go sit down somewhere. We're not bringing these themes inside the church. I'm grateful that he said, well, young man, let's first off have a conversation. And then
Yeah.
two,
Yeah.
prove it biblically. And allow me to do so really did change the atmosphere of dance and worship at that church at the time. I think to me, that's what should be happening is, okay, bro, if you're going to do stuff like this, have a conversation. You know, don't get up there and do gymnastics some more. Don't get up there and be insulting. Have a conversation. If you're going to use secular themes, then prepare yourself to have conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Like if you're gonna do a thing, walk it out. You know what I mean? Like do have respect for the situation and for the people enough to be able to at least defend what you're doing.
right.
Because if you if you have that stance, if you feel passionately about that thing, then okay, then have that stance, feel passionately about the thing, and be willing to have that conversation. I agree with you that I again, I will take this into, because this has a way of getting a certain air about it when you're just talking about music
Right.
and that sort of thing. But any of the situations that we have covered where there is a juxtaposition between the Christian lifestyle and something else, or it doesn't look like how some people think it should look, or
Right.
what have you, if you're going to step out and say and do, then be willing to have, if somebody approaches you, now you hope somebody approaches you with grace and with
Mm.
tact, and they're like, why this, why that, like, brother, I know, like, I'm not calling you out on the air, not you specifically, one of our listeners
Mm.
that up has approached me, but I'm just using you as an example, as I told you that I would likely have drawn an example to this on the air and all of that kind of stuff. I don't hide it. I don't necessarily throw it up, a big giant flashing neon sign to it. But somebody asked me, bro, why do you come on here looking like a woman?
Right. I mean, that's so.
So it's the same deal as any of these. They're earrings. If they're not showing up on
Let me see
the
'em.
screen, they're earrings. It's just like the blue in my beard. I am through and through completely and totally a creative, and I express myself through different means and different situations and things like that. Like you with dance, I can
Right.
now I can't, like, with dance, I'm like, did you not read the Psalms? You know what I mean? Like, did you
Right.
just ignore whole sections of the Psalms where people were dancing, where David himself was dancing? But I digress.
Right. Right. Right.
It's not, in my situation, in my circumstance, it's more about debunking myths based off of misused verses rather than drawing examples from specific verses. But I think any of these things, we need to be willing to have those conversations and back it up, or be authentic enough to say, this is just me, this is just my thing, and there's nothing that says that I can't biblically. Now, if you're just trying to shut down the conversation and say, oh, if you disagree with me, then you're wrong. How is that any different than any one of your naysayers? How is that different than
Right.
anybody else in the situation? You just happen to be taking the alternative perspective and shutting down any dialogue about it.
Right. And I think that's huge. So, if I had to, bring more landing gear to this theme that we're talking about today, is
Yeah.
if you're going to have a secular theme, um, I don't think that's near here or there. I think your bigger concern is your dialogue. How are you going to have a dialogue with the
Yeah.
people you're first off giving the message to, right? How are you going to be able to talk to them? What questions are you preparing yourself to answer when you're having this conversation? Two, how are you going to deal with those who disagree with you?
Yeah.
Because to me, those are where the most powerful conversations happen.
Yep.
And I just think this was just done poorly. Is that
Oh, yeah.
when you're addressed, you and this is something, I don't know, I really just thought about as you were talking, that I feel like this is actually bigger than I was going to say. I feel like I really hear this type of flex more in the African American community, but I actually more think about actually probably more generalized than I'm thinking. But I just couldn't shake the fact that he was like, I brought this many people in. How many did you bring into your church?
Yep.
And
I think that's so. So again, I'll say what I said before about the being the giant asterisk in the conversation of not knowing what I don't know. So
Right.
and being willing to be honest about that. So somebody may be able to educate me, and I'm all for education
Right.
on what I'm missing. But I it would seem like to me that's a pretty widespread evangelical thing
Right. And that's what I was
specifically.
getting at. Yeah, and that's why
Yeah.
I would think so. 'Cause the more I was saying, I was like, I think that's more evangelical than I think I'm giving it credit to be. Is
Yeah.
that people look at the success of what they're doing in God off of the volume of people that they're bringing in,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like, why are we competing that way with each other? First off, what's the need of competition?
Yep.
Second off, I mean, I'm really surprised I didn't hit this hard in the video. Sometimes I make YouTube videos. I'm like, man, I wish I could just go back and just insert myself before that upload happened and just add more stuff. But two, it really doesn't serve value to the body as a whole. And those souls are not yours. So let's say he
Yep.
said, I brought 50 souls. You didn't bring nobody.
You didn't win a single thing, man.
If
Yeah.
anything happened that night, it was the power of God. Just
Yep.
based off of your criticism. The
Yep.
people thinking that there is no God. So if anyone got saved and you saw it, it's definitely not by your hands or your works. The arrogance with a statement like that. But like I said, I've seen this statement before,
Yeah.
and it's a stick measuring contest. Keep it PG. That I just think is totally on. It just doesn't make sense. Why do we need to do that? It shows immaturity. It shows that you're actually not
Yeah.
secure in your stance.
Yeah.
I can respect someone who doubles down on their stance. There's like, yeah,
Yep.
this is my stance. Like you said,
Yeah.
Joe, this is just how I am. This is how I express myself. And I brought this into the service. You know what?
Yeah.
I disagree with, but I respect it because you're
Yeah.
doubling down and saying this is who you are at least. Versus when you
Right.
give me that, it shows me that you're not confident in what you did. And that
Right.
there's a possibility in what you did is wrong.
Yeah.
And here's the deal. You know, as cringy as walk it out might be, because you still gotta watch the video, bro. I don't know if you've seen the video, but just as cringy
Yeah.
as that might have been. Okay, appropriate. We do gotta walk this thing out in Christ. Oh my God,
Yep.
it sounds so cringy when I say it. We
And on
do
that note,
we do gotta walk this out, right? There are
yeah.
things that we're gonna have to walk out in Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah, ask
powerful.
yourself the question if you're not if you have a stance and you feel insecure when somebody challenges that stance, ask yourself the question. Do yourself the favor and ask yourself the question, why do you feel uncomfortable about it? Because at the very least, if nothing else, if everything else is all sunshine and rainbows and you're on the right page and all of that kind of stuff, then just understand how to defend your stance. Then just
Right.
do the work to defend your stance. No problem. There's no problem. But if there isn't that work to be done, if there isn't something that you can point to, then that's a different story. That's a different conversation.
Right.
But guys, I'm gonna go ahead and hit the brakes. I appreciate all of you guys tuning in and watching this morning. If you have any questions about this conversation, any of the things that came up, go ahead and drop a comment down in the comments section. If you are if this is your first time and you are on a different platform, you can find us live every single Saturday, 9:30 Eastern, 9:30 a.m. Eastern, over at the Kingdom on the Road YouTube channel. We are also live on Ant's channel. If you look up Anthony Wilson he's got a presence on Facebook. He's got a presence on YouTube. He also has the Love Thy Neighbor podcast. You can also find us live Friday mornings, 9:30 a.m. Same spots for Kingdom on the Road. T, your channel is the Gaming Pastor.
I am Pastor TC on YouTube, and I have I upload 3 videos daily. Not daily. It wouldn't be daily, right? Upload 3 times a week. And I upload my shorts every day. So if you're into gaming and Christian content, very controversial topics like this, probably highly recommend you come check it out because you're gonna get this in a gaming form. So come check it out.
Yeah, I know. So this is a conversation that may be extended into next week, and all of that because I feel like in a lot of ways we only scratched the surface
Oh yeah.
of this conversation and all of that. But guys, if you know somebody who would benefit and be blessed by somebody by raw authentic conversation that sometimes can get messy, that sometimes can go here, there, and everywhere, then what I'd like you to do is share the show with somebody. Let people know what we've got going on here, because it helps let people know. It helps spread the word of what we've got going on. And then shout out to the guy in the comments. Cedric, thank you for all of your interaction. And Andrew, you saw commenting on, like I said before, you can find him on the Ministry Misfits.
Yes.
Guys, 2 very important things. Remember, you are prayed for and you are loved deeply. Until next time, peace, y'all.